Recording. Ready? Hello and welcome to It's Within by Beauty Within, a podcast exploring the depths of beauty and the magic within us all. Ooh. Still trying to remember that.
Yeah, you did good.
And we have a very special launch that we can't wait to share with you guys about. It has to do with ding, ding, and ding.
Twinkle, twinkle. And don't worry, guys, it actually relates to everything we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So it all ties in.
We can't wait to share it with you guys.
Yes. More on this in just a bit.
Okay, so something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is how we as humans are able to take something negative and turn it positive. But on the same token, we're also able to take something positive and turn it negative, which is what helped us think of this episode where we want to explore the dark side of skincare and also self-care and just basically anything that has to do with wellness.
Yes.
When you take it to the extreme.
So it's almost like revealing two sides of the same coin.
And it sounds really intense, and we promise it's not. We just want to talk about
it. But guys,
it.
we're intense. So the question that was raised is by Ashlyn, and she said, it would be really interesting for you guys to talk about self-care and developing healthy mindsets, because she realized sometimes it becomes this mental game where you're trying to get this really positive outcome from doing something that's related to self-care, but actually you realize that it's bringing you more stress and more anxiety because you're almost not fitting, I guess, the mold of what the brand of self-care and like healthy mindset is. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, which ties exactly with like the pros and the cons of everything.
Yeah. So 2 examples. The first being a lot of us get into skincare because we want to cure something or we feel like something's wrong with their skin. And so we get very frustrated and dejected and just like dispirited when we see that nothing's changing. But that might not be the healthiest mindset. And the second example that Ashlyn brought up is working out. Are we working out to really be fit, or are we working out because we want to lose weight and or look a certain way? And Fel's going to take the skincare because girl grew up with oily, acne-prone skin. I'm going to take the weight loss, working out, dieting sphere because girl's been struggle with it in my youth.
Yeah, and both of which fall into the category of appearance and image, and that's especially daunting when you're growing up in your teenage years. So for me, I had acne and breakouts, which is like not cool when you're growing up because you just see all these pictures of people with perfect skin and no one wants to have like a huge zit on their face, let alone like 5.
And this is around the time where magazines were huge, like teen magazines, and everyone's face is airbrushed, but you didn't know that because you're 15.
Yeah, and the products at the time were like Clean and Clear, help fight breakouts with all these like products, right? So for me, it was like, 1, you're trying to figure out why you're different to other people. Why am I so shiny on the T-zone and other people aren't? Why is it that I feel like I'm finally using this product that's supposed to be helping with everything and like it's not working the way that you said it would? And then you're kind of stuck like, is it me? Like, is there something that I just have to live with? Or maybe like you point it, I'm like, Mom, why'd you give me this skin? And then you basically go into more of a depression rather than like empowering yourself and figuring it out.
And I think now that we've kind of walked this path, we know that the state that you're in can very much affect your outer appearance. Because you could be doing everything right about your skin, but if you're mentally unstable and or stressed, it could reflect on the outside as well.
Yes, so because now we know acne is very related to stress and food and nutrition, everything, not just the outset. But then for your eating habits,
I think like I just wanted to be skinny, but I would cover that up and be like, oh, I want to eat healthy. I try all these different diets. I was like vegetarian at one point. I like cut out carbs at one point. I stopped eating fats at one point. I like completely messed up my stomach. And I also work out a lot. I used to work out a lot, but that was all at the core of it to be skinny, to fit into this mold, to look like the IG models that blew up, like the triangle. Did you, like, it's an Australia brand.
What is it?
Triangle. Triangle.
The bikini line?
Yeah, the bikini.
Oh, yeah.
Those girls. Like, that was when social media was coming up for us, and that was what we saw all the time. Knowing full well that this isn't true, but it's like, oh, if I were a little skinnier, or if I was a little prettier, maybe like my boyfriend would love me more, or like maybe other people would accept me more.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of train of thought.
You know, as you were saying that, I was just thinking of all the videos that are what I ate in a day. And I'm like, what actually makes those so popular? I think it is what you just said. It's like, oh, if it works for this person, then it should work for me if I eat exactly what they eat. And so, like, the more that we learn, which is everything that we talk about in relation to skincare, but, like, obviously it's with everything. It's like the more we learn about what's out there and ourselves, we understand why that, like, it's actually not you. You just need to go on a different path.
And the interesting thing, going back to my recent pondering, is that there's inherently nothing wrong about what I eat in a day, right? But for it to be in the spotlight and getting all the views, it's easy for us to take it and turn it into something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what's even more interesting? It really goes into relationships and everything like that too. It's like being in a relationship can be a good thing, but actually, if you're not in the right mindset and you're seeking a relationship for a different reason, then actually it can be very toxic very easily.
And it can be the same with the relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God. So we're just trying to paint a picture that, like, the principle of seeing things in a good way. And I almost think things start off very innocently and it is very good. And then it just gets bombarded way too much with, like, opinions and people monetizing on it and people finding, like, popularity out of it, and they have to keep doing it, and then becomes bad all of a sudden. Not, or like it has strayed so far from the intention of what it was born from.
So I think this feeling of confusion, lost, loneliness, everything that we've kind of talked about, it's like the byproduct of everything we've just been talking about, right? It's something that both Fel and I feel very near and dear to our hearts, which is why Beauty Within exists. And we try to talk about these things and, like, expand on these things together, right? With, like, the industry, with beauty, with skincare, with ourselves, with our mind. It's why we wanted to start this podcast, video podcast version. And
it's actually really interesting because we both approach these mental habits quite differently, but we have the same goal, which is, like, to understand it and get out of that funk kind of thing. So you're talking about feeling lost. You're, like, kind of confused why everyone else seems to be having success from whatever they're doing, and you're sitting here like, what is it? And then on top of that, I don't know if you brought it up already, but you like to talk about being obsessive about things.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, let's say you find a method of self-care, let's say, or some form of, like, enjoyment. So what is your perception now? Like, you've been doing it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so you've seen almost the trajectory and the growth of when it first started to now. Like, what was your relationship with obsessing over certain things and trying to, like, make it be a good habit and it not exactly happening that way?
So I can confidently say that in my early 20s, everything that I did was unhealthy. But I think the reason why it was unhealthy was because I didn't have an anchor, or I didn't know why. Truly, like, I wasn't honest with myself why I was doing these things. So I was lost and I didn't have a North Star. And I think it's through getting to know myself, through getting to know my values, through getting to know why I did any of these things to begin with. Why did I dress a certain way? Why did I put myself on these diets? Why did I work out? To really strip it down, of course, there's, like, many layers. But at the core of it was just, like, to look good or to fit in or to fit this image of what someone should look like.
Can you paint a picture of any one of those examples? So, like, you kind of talked about diet. What about dress? The way we dress.
If you guys grew up around the same time I did, Nasty Gal, Sophia Amoruso's clothing brand was, like, the thing for me when it first started. Like, when it first blew up. I mean, now it's, like, gone through bankruptcy, like, it's gone through a lot, but I, like, saw them went from this, like, pure e-com to becoming brick and mortar. I thought she was, like, the coolest person ever. I, like, even tried to intern there when I went to school in LA. It's, like, super edgy, like, black cutouts, like, straps. I don't know. I was like, this is
It was edgy.
cool.
It was the it girl brand.
Yeah. Loved it. But, like, when I think back to that, it's like, why did I dress that way, right? It's like, oh, to like go out, to go clubbing.
Why did you dress that way then? And then like what was your mindset at that point? And then what is it like looking back at mini Robo?
I mean, my mindset back then was like, I want to be cool. Like, period. I think that drove a lot of who I was and why I did the things that I did. And I think at the core of why you want to look cool is maybe like you want to fit in, you want to be accepted. But at the same time, it's like I didn't really care what people think, but then also I cared so much about what people thought. It's like this like weird dichotomy.
Yeah.
And then I think I'm also driven by this desire to be different. So I think that was my intentions back then. And it was clear because it literally bled into everything else in my life. And then I think now looking back, it's like, I just want to give her a hug. She is great and perfect the way she is. She doesn't need to dress for boys. She doesn't need to dress to be cool. She's just like her existence is already cool, you know?
But you know, it's funny because if you were to tell her back then, it's like the last thing that people want to hear.
She wouldn't know. And I think we've talked about this before in previous videos, or I've told you this for sure, where, you know, Gone Girl, there's that, the cool girl. Like the cool girl doesn't give a F, and then she like eats hot dogs and chugs beers and eats burgers, and she like doesn't care, and she's chill, and like guys love her. She's like a bros girl. Like that whole like monologue. I mean, that movie is weird. Like it's crazy, but like that was me, and that was who I was trying to be. And I think the reason why this little monologue spoke to so many women and girls is because we all tried to do that.
Another theme that I see is like time. Because I feel like in different phases of our time, we'll always be able to look at different situations and know exactly what we had to do, right? But it's like we almost had to go through and be that. You know, when we hate ourselves for being a certain way and being like, oh my God, I can't believe I was like that. Or like, I can't believe I dated that guy. Or like, I can't believe I was. But actually, when you're older, you can accept those things. And so I don't know if anyone's currently going through like confusion. Like I feel like that's what they mean by this is where you need to be now kind of thing.
Yeah, and guys, that is what inspired our Celestial collection.
Celestial, yes, and North Star, Feeling Lost. Because if you think about the stars, we look at them and gaze upon them from as mere mortals on this little earth. And they're teeny tiny. We can barely see them. They're, you know, twinkling away. But if you were up close, they're a huge ball of fire.
They're like massive.
Yeah.
Just like us.
Yes, we're simultaneously the opposites of everything. So we're big and small. You know, we can be really big, fill up the whole room, or we can be super small in a different environment. As we were introducing this topic, it's like there is positive to a negative and negative to a positive.
Yeah.
And so we're really playing off the extremes.
Yes.
Yeah, and like somewhere in between, I guess you find yourself.
Yeah.
But amongst that, you just feel like you're in, oh my God, there's like so many times where I feel like I'm just shooting arrows in the dark, not knowing where I'm going, right? And then we all need, whether it's purpose or whether it's like your job or your friends, you don't know if you're on the right track. So this collection really is just a symbol of all of that.
Yeah.
To find yourself.
Yeah, and a reminder that you're not alone. In a galaxy of stars, there's so many stars. Technically, they could be like light years away from each other, but it's still, you're surrounded by so many brilliantly shining, dazzling stars. Like yourself.
And still, the concept of time,
Yeah.
like that star is 150,000 light years away. And in order to see and breed a new one, we have to like dive 5,000 times for it to like
we
be
need
kind.
the stars that we currently see in the skies is actually something from
The way
eons
past.
ago.
Yeah.
So to see where we currently are, it's going to take time, which I think it's so beautiful because it's what you were just talking about too.
About our past self.
Yeah, and about timing. Yeah.
This is our largest drop with Ana Luisa. So we have 3 pairs of earrings. We have a ring, a bracelet, and a necklace. So it's the whole shebang.
And we've been wearing this for a while on Instagram, on socials, on this channel. So you guys may have seen it. A lot of you guys have asked. So this is it. And I think because the concept of this collection is so personal and meaningful to us, Fel and I wanted to name every piece after a team member on the Beauty Within team.
It just so happened that we had that many people on the team. So it really is like formed as a group of the Beauty Within. And we've been collaborating with Ana Luisa for, what is it, 3-4 years now. We've had multiple collaborations with them. And if you're just being introduced to their brand, they're all carbon neutral. They're very environmentally conscious, and they're all at very affordable prices, but like really good quality. So I actually wore my necklace to my wedding. That's how personal and like, you know, just intimate it is to me. It's part of my body.
So to give you guys an example, the threader earrings, it's gold on sterling silver. And then on most of the other products, it's gold on brass. I think just a lot of the earrings are gold on sterling silver because I think it's like better for more sensitive ears.
Yeah, it's like hypoallergenic. So if you have super sensitive skin, that kind of oozes that weird watery substance when it goes through the water.
Speaking from experience.
It's not itchy or anything.
Yeah.
And like it's so good that I can wear it in the shower and all that. It's like
even though it's not recommended
that you don't.
I do.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah. Take care of the pieces as you would yourself,
Yeah.
you know. Give it love and take it off when you're going in chlorine water and all that.
And just remember when you're wearing these pieces that we're all connected.
Yes. So pivoting back to our stories.
Yes.
So you were telling us about like this wanting to fit in, especially at a time when everyone like needs to find their people, wanting to fit in. I want to give like this is my like mental space growing up, and I almost don't know how to describe it. It's almost like the underdog mentality. I always wanted to be unseen. I wanted to be invisible, and because I found solace and comfort in that. You know, when people are like, oh my God, you have to like sit by yourself and eat. Like those are the times when I feel like, yeah. And although in saying that, I was also very sociable. So I think even now there's kind of like this weird understanding of like my personality. Honestly, I'm still trying to like understand it too. It's like sometimes you're really outgoing and sometimes you're not. And it's perfectly fine to be like both, especially in my teenage years when I was growing up. It's not that I didn't have insecurities and stuff, but I just like really kept them to myself as well. So for example, acne was one thing. I was always really self-conscious about these stretch marks that I had like in the back of my arms and also in my knee pits. So the knee pits is like, you know, the back.
Yeah.
And I don't know, your girl just grew too fast or something. Or it was like genetic because both my mom and dad have it. But at school, I would have to wear these school skirts and every girl would wear them above their knee. In winter, you have stockings, but in the summer, you don't. And so I would always be so self-conscious that it would just reveal the back of my like very grainy looking stretch marked leg. And then on top of that, because I did a lot of sports, I had very muscular calves, which is funny. I'm
like your husband.
But not to that extent.
It's his identifying quality. He's a great person, thoughtful man, big calves.
I wrote that into our vows too. So anyway, they were like more muscular than most of the other girls. And you know, you have this ideal body shape of what like a pretty girl is. And although I just never even thought like that was the attainment status, I just never thought like, what is that type of thing? I still just didn't like that part. Muscular legs, stretch marks everywhere, and acne on the face. But because I was able to like play it off so well and almost conceal it for so long that it wasn't like so bad. You know, when you're insecure about something, everything that people say to you are kind of just like, oh, they're looking at it. Like I was able to conceal that, but still it would pry on my mind all the time.
So would you say that affected you as much as acne? Or what was more front of mind on a regular basis?
I think acne because you have to face people. With body, you can kind of hide it.
Yeah.
You just get really good at dressing for your body shape.
Yeah.
And so if anything, I was like, I know my body well. I know I can't wear those types of jeans.
Yeah.
So with acne, that's what got me into, I guess, like being really curious about makeup at a really young age and knowing how to blend things. But, you know, sometimes you'd see yourself in a different light. Like sometimes you think you're super cute and then you walk through a reflection and you're like, oh my God, Like, who told me this was okay? I don't know how to describe it, but I was almost in harmony with it. At the same time, I was just conflicted by myself. Yeah.
We sound like the same, but different, but same.
Over the years, I think back and I'm like, what made it better? Like, how did I get out of that? It was actually a mixture of things. As you get older, you just kind of know what you can change and what you can't change. So it was that. But also, my friends never made it a point. They never made me feel any differently. And honestly, to other people, it might seem like nothing. You know what I mean? So that also consistently over the years makes you think that it's like nothing. And then over the years, and this is probably the longest term investment into myself, which is learning about why. So we've come to the point where it's like 28 years later, like, wait, well, it's not that long. So it's maybe like
15?
15 years later.
Are you a fetus?
I'm now understanding, and almost like we're paying it forward and back to people who are still in that stage of this is what I wish I knew, you know, like instead of just hearing it's okay, you're beautiful, it's normal, you're a teenager, like, but why? You know, so like the hormones, and some people are different, and it's a mixture of genetics and epigenetics and environment and all of that. And so all of that gives you control back to own it and then make decisions about it. So that's like body image. Because in terms of self-care activities,
oh yes,
I want to talk about this too.
Yes.
Because I feel like self-care can also be quite toxic.
Oh yeah.
if approached in the wrong way.
Yes.
And so,
you know what's funny? My past 2 videos on my personal channel has been about why you don't need a morning routine and why you don't need to get your life together.
180 flip.
Yeah.
Huh.
Tea.
Okay, well, that's interesting because I'm a person who almost like could never get into it. Like I would try it and I'm like, it's not for me. So let's talk about like what self-care means to us and what the actual root of it is, what it's trying to guide, and where we can kind of fall off the wagon.
What does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me?
Yeah.
Okay, so self-care to me, at the beginning, I was like, why is it being branded as facial tools and like goods, material goods? Or, you know, they're always trying to sell something to you, because I was like, self-care is actually me time.
It's just self.
Yes, it's time for self. It never, I guess, caught on to my radar because kind of going back to our previous episode, I've always been pretty like chill about my own mental health. I've never needed the tools to guide me that way. But what I did need help with over the time is like carving time and defining what is me time.
But what does me time mean to you, and why do you do it?
Okay, so me time in the simplest form, I feel like, is what comes naturally to you that gives you peace. And it's something that shouldn't necessarily come forced, and I don't necessarily need to force myself to carve time out. So for example, I love just painting my nails. Like, painting my nails is self-care. And if I can paint my nails and watch something chill in the background, like a documentary on animals or a documentary on, I don't know, like conspiracy theories.
Aquarius!
Like that, oh my God, I could do that all day, every day, and just be content in life. Because if I take one out, let's say just nail painting, I'm like, this is a waste of time.
Yeah, true.
And you know what that's also synonymous to? Peeling a grapefruit and eating a grapefruit. I love it because it takes so much effort, but the payoff and what you get in the end is like bitter, sweet, like
harmony.
Everything. Yeah, it's great. And I invested time.
Belle loves grapefruits.
Grapefruit green tea.
Loves grapefruits.
It's time that I don't necessarily have to think about doing an extra activity. And I think that's actually what people might be stuck on, right? I don't know. You can tell me from your audience as well, like what is actually causing the anxiety and the confusion part. I think it's almost when they see other people's self-care routine and they're like, oh my God, I have to journal. I have to wake up at 4 a.m. I have to do XYZ. And then it doesn't match in harmony with their own routine. And then there's conflict. And then they're like, oh my God, I can't self-care. I have no chill. And then they go into an existential crisis and they're like,
And then their acne flares up.
yeah, and then their acne flares up and then it goes on a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So for simplicity, yeah, that's my self-care. And it's time by myself. So I just want to quickly talk about like time to self because I understand that some people can get more anxious when they're by themselves. But I almost feel like no matter whether you're extroverted, introverted, whatever it is, the goal is to be okay by yourself.
Just stillness with the self.
Yeah.
To be able to spend quiet time and to reflect and to just be
And to be.
by yourself.
Yeah.
Period.
But I also know there's different times in life where that will be more important. And so another tag on self-care is actually, what is your priority? So, you know, in life, we have family, we have work, we have self, and we have socializing, and we have hobbies and interests. And we're almost trying to juggle all of them simultaneously.
It's like the pick 2
Yeah.
or 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the older I get, I realize I don't have to give all those the equal amount of percentage of priority because that's when I start to crumble at the
Yeah.
seams. So I almost feel like self-care, how to get there, is
It's
to
just like doing the dance.
at least neglect 2 at the same time and then focus on like 3. So for me now, I focus on work, I focus on my own me time, and I focus on my relationship with my husband, right? So what I quote unquote neglect is my family because I can
they're in
afford.
Oz.
Yeah, exactly. I
They're
can
understanding.
afford to.
Yeah.
But some people can't afford to. Like, let's say if they live with their family, like one of our teammates, she lives with her family. And so you need to give them attention and care. So if I was in a different situation, it would be a different set of priorities.
If you were home in Oz, you probably wouldn't value work as much
Right.
as you do now and spend more of that time with family.
Yes. It would be just a completely different lifestyle. And another thing I unfortunately neglect is my friends. But actually here, I don't have many friends. And I don't say that in a depressing way. It's just as you get older, you really like choose to spend time with a select few, right? So I'm very aware of who I'm neglecting. And maybe in a different, like in a week or in a different season or in a month, I will refocus those priorities. But until I can get comfortable with the 3 I have now, then I can't move on to the other one. Yeah. So that's like my self-care.
Go off, fam.
Tell me about your updated, I guess, thoughts.
In general.
Yeah.
So I think self-care to me has always meant taking good care of yourself and making time for yourself so that you can show up in the world and help people in the way that you want to and to be able to make and create the positive influences that you want to. And so I think maybe growing up or a lot of people now could see self-care and think of it as a selfish thing. Whether you just like, oh my God, it's toxic and like I never want to do it, or you feel guilty that like, wait, I can't carve out time for myself because I need to be there for other people.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's just this kind of reshift in your mindset, as we talked about in the beginning, of doing something good for yourself is actually good for your mind, body, and soul. I will say I've tried a lot of different things, but I would never force myself to do something that I don't want to do. So for a period of my life, I was waking up at 4 a.m. It was glorious. It was amazing. I haven't been able to do it since. I've been wanting to, but I'm not badgering myself and being like, how come you're not doing that anymore? I think there were seasons, because this was maybe like 5 years ago, right? There were seasons throughout where I was like, oh my God, this isn't happening. Like this, I'm the worst person. But I think over time, I learned to make peace with that. There's just different seasons in your life. And then I think the thing that gets people the most is, as you're saying, of like, it just so happens that the most viral videos on YouTube is what I eat in a day, or morning routines, or evening routines, or within like the self-care productivity space, like how to get your life together, right? I think there's nothing wrong with it. And in the video that I uploaded, I also asked my audience, like, why do you like it? And do you think it's doing more harm than good, or vice versa? And for the most part, they're like, you know, if I'm in a funk, I like putting on a video like this to let me know that it's possible. So to me, best case scenario is if someone puts on this video, pauses it halfway in between because they got what they needed, and they're able to start cleaning, or they're able to just take a shower, or they're able to pick up, you know, clothes off of the floor, right? I mean, I hate showering. So, like, maybe sometimes you watch someone doing something and you're like, oh, wait, it's manageable. I can do it. Let me break it down in smaller bite sized pieces. So, I think there's still so much good in these types of videos. But I think the bad comes from when you look at someone living this life and you think you need to do everything that they're doing, because this is literally what everyone's talking about in every single one of these morning routine videos. Most people are like, I don't have 5 hours in the morning to do all of this. Right? So I think my whole thesis is morning routines are important. They can help you, but just do like the one or two thing that you love, and just knowing that sometimes you'll need 10 steps in your skincare routine and sometimes you can be fine with 2, right? It's the same with our routine, like our habits too. There'll be seasons where you like wake up, you're excited to journal, you want to read, you want to absorb all of these things. And then there'll be times where you're just like, I'm going to make a matcha, I'm just going to go to work. I'm just going to sit on my couch and not do anything for 30 minutes. And that's kind of like cultivating that stillness. Yeah.
So as you were saying that, I really like was reminded of what maybe the pain point is in all of this. It's just comparison. It's like, one, we're already pitched a bunch of ideas on how to solve a problem, but they're trying to solve the problem in general, not your specific problem, right? And it's really on us to solve our specific problem, which means develop our specific routine. And then rather than like when we watch these videos or we listen to these, even like podcasts, maybe like us. Yes. Hopefully we're trying to like demystify everything. Yeah. And you're stuck in the comparison mode rather than the developing mode of actually finding out what works for you. So like one of our best performing videos is our real routines, right? And a part of me is like, of course, I understand why you guys want to know, because, like when we're not reviewing other products, what are we doing in our own time? But there's also a part of me that's like, I don't want to share this and make you guys seem like this is the only way to do it, because it just so happens this is what I'm using this week, right? And it could literally
like
change.
Today.
Yeah. And so like when we watch another person's, this is a day in the life video, this is what I eat, or this is how I dress, rather than like take the little nuggets of knowledge and be like, yep, okay, I can apply this and adapt it to my life. They're like, oh my God, why can't I be like that? And then that's probably where it all like starts to crumble. Because for me, I was never like you. I was like, I can't do anything that I don't really like am interested in. I'm just like not like that. So journaling was just never for me. And I tried to understand why at the beginning, because I'm like, is it because I'm not in touch with my thoughts? But actually I realized I was already very much in my thoughts. Like
it's you
at
process
all times.
them all, so you don't need to write them down.
Yeah, like at all times it's like questioning, okay, so why did I do that? So I'm already mentally journaling in my head. And so I realized I wasn't getting anxious over those thoughts. I wasn't getting anxious over asking myself why I do things, why I don't do certain things. And so if it's not causing me stress, then I don't need to add another activity on top of my already
active
schedule. Yeah. And so if it doesn't give you joy, literally you don't have to do it, right?
And that was actually the 3 questions I asked myself, because like I've been falling off my morning routine. So I was like, okay, let me just ask myself 3 questions. What gets me excited to wake up in the morning, making like a matcha? What brings me joy? I love doing skincare. And what, I forgot the last one, excited, joy, and peace. What you said earlier too, right? Self-care is like finding that peace. And for me, it's meditating or reading or even journaling sometimes. But it's like having tried a bunch of different habits that you see online, you will start finding things that gel with you most. And you can lean on those when you need them. Yeah. But know that you don't always need them.
Yeah. And it will be different for everyone. I almost see it now as like, let's just say whatever self-care tool it is that you're trying, right? Whether it's a gua sha, jade, whether it's, I don't know, what do people do? Journal, what else? Go for a run.
Hot girl walks.
Yeah, like whatever it is, it's that same feeling of when you meet someone and you just click, or you meet someone and it's really like tiring. So if it gives one or the other or somewhere in between, if it's somewhere in between, you can still explore it, maybe try it for a week. If it really doesn't gel, like move on to the next thing. It's like okay to test. But if it really isn't, and you know and you tried, like it doesn't have to be in your routine. Yeah.
So I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, The dark side of skincare, self-care, everything that we've been talking about. Did you ever go through something like that? Like the examples that were given, where you were doing something and you realized, oh wait, why am I actually doing this? Or are you just an honest person through and through and you just never do things that is not aligned with your purpose as a human?
It's not the fact that it's like I never do things that are not aligned. I think I get very easily tired when I do things that aren't aligned. And so it's naturally, it just pulls me back.
That's a very important point, though, that I think a lot of us miss. Our bodies are very aware. Our mind is very aware. If you're tired all the time, it might be because you're living in misalignment with your true self, with your essential self.
Yeah, and it took me a while to understand this. So I'm going to bring up one thing, which is socializing. So I've always been like a little hermit crab. Like like I'm not even saying grandma mode to be funny. It's like literally I find peace since I was really young. So my mom, she came over and she was like, you were always kind of weird in that.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, like when you were little and I'd be like, okay, bedtime, and we'd sleep together, you would roll away to the other side and just sleep yourself. Like you'd never want to cozy up to me. And it's not that you didn't love me. You would come up to me, the next day and we'd be like, fine. Also, when your grandma would pick you up from school, she'd be like, okay, we're crossing the road. And I'm like, no, I don't need it. That kind of thing.
Like holding your hand.
Yeah. And then when like dad was going to the food court with you, it's like he wanted to show you all the different places that you could choose to pick to eat, but you were like, no. So it's always like I just felt comfortable with my own way in a way. And I don't know like how that came about, right?
To be fair, though, you're not like stubborn
Yeah.
in your own way. You just know what you want.
Yeah. So going back to the socializing, I was really tormented for like a few years of my life, maybe before COVID, like 3 to 4 years ago, let's say. And I know in this job, like you have to network, you have to meet people, you have to almost do what doesn't feel the most comfortable. And I feel like I would do that. But then there's always more. You know what I mean? Like you go to one thing and there's always more. It's like you go to an event. Do you want to go to dinner? Do you want to keep going on this night? And like honestly, no. And I feel like a lot of us like no, right? Because one, I love connecting with people and I love hearing their stories. I love asking questions. And so I get over my insecurity and my like social anxiety just through curiosity about people. That's what actually takes me out of it. But then after that, I'm like, okay, that was great. Like I met a new person, understood new perspectives, and I can see my life in a different way now. It's not just all about like me and what I think in my little world. Now I need to go home and process. When you're young, it's like to be the cool girl almost. It's like, oh yeah, you go do that because then it equates to being popular. But I always thought like, why do I just not want to? Like it's really taxing. So when we were younger and we used to party a lot, like I had always the most outgoing friends. I was always matched with really like sociable. They knew all the people at the club. They knew all these people in restaurants and all this stuff. And she'd be like, my best friend, like, Fel, why, like, people want to know you. Why don't you just come out with us? And I'd be like, I can't. Like, I literally just can't. There was a part of me that's like, do you not want to be liked? Like, what is your problem? I'd talk to myself. Or it's like, you have to push yourself out of your boundary sometime. So I didn't know how to manage that. And I was like, oh, but to be a normal human being, you need to do these things. But now I realize it's the seasons of life. Sometimes I can put more into it. Sometimes I can't. It doesn't mean that I don't like you. It just means it's like I'm not there. That kind of thing. Like, and I feel guilty all the time. Like apologizing left, right, and center. You remember like talking about, you were like, James likes to apologize all the time. I'm like, I always felt like it can seem very standoffish. She just doesn't want to know me, or like she doesn't care about this because she doesn't show up.
Too cool for school.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I actually can't. Like, I need to process. So that's been something. I still work through it.
When did you realize this and how did you start making peace with it?
It goes back to the pillars of our life. Like, everything will always demand attention. And so as long as I'm very clear about my current priorities, I can put the rest at ease. So I still get smacked in the face right, with the other things that I neglect. But I take full ownership that I am neglecting it for now. So, for example, my cousin, who I'm planning this tea ceremony back in Australia with for like the second wedding ceremony thing.
Family wedding.
Yeah, we're doing a joint thing, right? And he's basically handled everything. He sends me a message one night out of the blue and was like, I know you're really busy and I know you might not put me as a priority, but I put you as a priority. And it would be nice to hear from you or like your thoughts about this once in a while. And although it sounded harsh, I knew exactly what he was meaning because I know I've been neglecting that, right? Because my focus now has been carve out time to spend with Thomas, to get our lives in order, and to keep the ship running for Beauty Within. So those are my three. And those are honestly all I can juggle while being mentally sane, you know, and have me time.
Yeah.
Nail painting time. And so I'm fully aware and I'm like, okay, so now a new data point has been put into the world of my mind. I can now see over time, okay, I've given enough time to set my environment straight now. We've moved in, we've unpacked. Now the time that I spent on that, I can maybe put onto my family relationships or my friendships. And so slight pivot and then on goes like your life, right? It's a mixture of like taking ownership, knowing my priorities, being fully aware that like you can't satisfy everyone. I think when you're young, you just try to satisfy everyone and then you lose yourself. Yeah. What about you now?
I think that losing yourself is the biggest part because your anchor isn't rooted. Like you're unclear about your priorities. So you're being swayed all these different directions and you think your life's a mess because it seems and it does feel chaotic. But I think if you have an anchor, if you know your North Star, if you know the direction you're headed, it's a lot easier to say yes or no to these things without feeling as guilty.
Yes, and own it.
Yeah. And to be able to set boundaries, right? I think now that we're older, we're also able to communicate with friends. It's like, hey, I love you. Maybe it's your birthday, right? But like, I'm just not in the space to go out right now. Let's grab like a one-on-one dinner, right? Especially if you are more introverted and you thrive better on like one-on-one interactions and like settings.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part. And as you were saying everything, I think, yeah, it's just really... You just need to know who you are and what you care about.
Yeah. At that point in your life.
Oh, and to not take yourself or your life too seriously.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think there's positive in having standards for yourself and having expectations for yourself. But that to the extreme is actually a negative thing because you have all of these like negative self-talk and then it drives you to this like other direction, right? So I think everything in moderation is good, right? It's good to be positive and hopeful, but it's also good to be a bit skeptical or like cautious.
Yes, there's always both.
Yeah, but too much of one thing, you're just like feeling,
Yeah.
you're just gonna tip overboard. Also, like the core of not taking yourself too seriously, when I was going through all of this, I was depressed. I had like really bad anxiety. I couldn't sleep at all. Like I couldn't fall asleep until like 3 or 4 every single night. Like it was so hard to fall asleep.
When was this?
College, high school, end of high school, and then all of college.
Oh, yeah. When it's the worst.
Yeah, and then I was just distracting myself with drinking and, you know, going out and trying things that I don't do anymore. And I think during that time, it was also because I was so deep in my own head that I felt like I need to be this person or else, or that my world just revolved around my thoughts and that I was my thoughts. All these like negative, anxious, sad, happy, existential thoughts were me. In reality, it's like we talk about this all the time. If like as soon as I was able to separate myself from my thoughts, I was like, oh, you're just Rowena. And you have these tendencies, but it's just that. It's just thoughts and they're just ideas, and you can change your thoughts and you can change your ideas about yourself. Realizing that and starting to slowly chip away at it, I think the realization was liberating and it was incredibly freeing. And to slowly start chipping away at it was when like I started being able to pull myself out of this place.
So maybe how we can reframe the goal of self-care and shifting mindset is not to find a cure or not to find a static end goal. It's actually to be okay with the ebb and flow of the figuring out process.
Yeah.
Because I almost feel like now it's kind of like perfection. You're never going to get there. You're just trying your best at all times, and you should, right?
And that's
to
good
be
enough.
the best you can be, and that is life.
Yeah.
Till the very end.
That is the meaning of life.
So then self-care will also be subject to change. It's a never-ending changing goal because we're constantly growing, learning, adjusting. Different people are coming in and out of our lives, and that's like totally okay. But to check in with ourselves. Yeah.
And to do things because you genuinely want to do things.
Yeah.
Right? I think if you guys watch this video this far and if you watch this because of skincare, you probably genuinely love skincare.
Yeah.
So do that.
Yeah.
Right? But if you've watched this far, you don't care about skincare, hi, like we're glad that you're here, because you've like committed so much. But yeah.
It's like our skin cycling video.
Yeah.
If it works for you, great. Keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that reminded me of how I ended my last relationship. The long distance. I was like, let's do it until it doesn't make sense anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like we both pieced out like harmoniously. So it's like, do it until it doesn't give you that same gratifying feeling or effect, and then be open to change, and it's another phase.
Yeah.
Yay.
Be easy with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Be kind to the mind.
Be kind to the mind.
Yay!
Okay, so thank you, Ashlyn, for submitting that question
This
to us.
amazing question.
All encompassing.
Yeah, we had thoughts. We had many thoughts.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, or maybe you're just watching on one platform or the other, we're on, I always say Shopify, but we're on Spotify, and you can watch the video. We're also on Apple and YouTube.
Yeah. So as always, leave questions, comments down below. If you're on YouTube, you can send us an email, hello@beautywithin.com. You can find us on Instagram @beautywithinofficial. Say hi. Let us know what you guys think about It's Within. And check out our Anna Luisa new drop.
Yes.
6 pieces, celestially inspired to help us
Bing, bing.
remember our North Star that is bright and shiny and glowy and dewy like our skin.
In the darkness.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.